and she left her Kindle on page 274. The highlight wasn't from the book. I didn't mean to read her highlights. I meant to charge her Kindle because the battery icon had begun to look like a pleading face. Lena had fallen asleep on the sofa with her ankle thrown over the armrest, a glass of red wine quietly inventing a stain on the rug. I plugged the Kindle in, tapped the screen to see the little lightning bolt, and the page blinked awake mid-paragraph. It was a novel about a quiet marriage and a loud summer. The sentence on the screen had a neat gray underline. When I touched it, a note popped up that wasn't part of the novel. Hold the elevator at 1912. Page 274 equals door code. I told myself there were a dozen harmless explanations, like a magician telling himself a dove just likes living in a sleeve. Maybe it was a friend's borrowed device. Maybe it was some weird book club scavenger hunt where people leave cryptic notes and later reward you with tepid hummus and too much eye contact. Then I saw the style of the punctuation. Lena's punctuations are particular, and knew the note was hers. I flipped forward and found more. Sunflower pin equals me. Ask for mineral water. Leave the book open. The novel's characters were discussing whether love or habit ends first. In the margin, Lena had written, habit, then you look for love like a lost receipt. I felt my ribs become a filing cabinet. There are two versions of me. One version, husband planner, the man who inventory checks our peace like it's a warehouse, would wake her and say, "What is this?" The other version is the one I use at work, the version that solves problems without scaring them away. That version picked up the Kindle and opened the notes and highlights, indexed like it was a map. Most were ordinary. Underlined lines about kitchens and minor betrayals, a saved recipe for lemon linguine someone had tucked into a memoir. But the last handful read like coordinates. Mineral water isn't a drink, it's the bar. Keys in the fiction return slot. Room 274. I closed the Kindle like it might bite. Room 274 could be anything. An apartment, a memory, a bad luck number, but I work in logistics. My brain turns every noun into a location. There's a boutique hotel called The Stacks wedged between our river and our favorite bakery. The Stacks used to be a library. Now it is a building that sells nostalgia at night rates. The rooms are named after bookish things. Index, appendix, colophon. Their Wi-Fi is called reference desk. I've walked past it 100 times, the lobby lined with artfully distressed card catalogs that hold nothing but menus. The Stacks has two elevators that whisper to the kind of people who pretend to like silence. If you hold one, a second elevator will stop on the same floor, an old quirk they never fixed. 1912. It was 1821. I put the Kindle back where she dropped it, covered her bare feet with the throw blanket and put the wine glass in the sink. Then I left. You practice a certain gait when you walk into a hotel intending to ruin your life. Mine said, "I belong here and I'm late." The woman at the front desk had a mouth that made everything sound curated. "Welcome back," she said, which is a trick good hospitality plays on strangers. "Can I help you with anything?" "Mineral water," I said, and she smiled. "Down the hall to the left," she answered, "past the card catalogs. Don't take anything, they're heavier than they look." The bar had once been the periodicals room, and the chandelier was made of fake newspapers. People had the kind of drinks that ask to be photographed before they convince you not to taste them. I took a stool and ordered the most boring thing I could say out loud. "Mineral water," I said to the bartender, and he winked like I'd told him a joke that was tired but friendly. When he set the bottle down, there was a tiny sunflower pin next to it on a square of black napkin. Sunflower, pin. I knew my wife's handwriting when it walked around the world and came back with a prop. I waited. At 19:09, a woman took the seat beside me and ordered a martini like she was auditioning to be someone's problem on purpose. She wore a dress Lena would call a choice and a sunflower pin the size of a pronouncement. Not Lena. Her hair was the wrong kind of intentional. But when she saw the pin by my glass, she smiled deliberately and said, "You must be terrible at directions or very good at clues." I said, "Second one," because I wanted to see what play we were in before I refused the role. She leaned closer, unnecessary for the volume we were using, and I smelled the lipstick-heavy, primer-like chemistry of a person who treats their face like a strategy. "Leave the book open," she said. "He'll find you easier." "I didn't bring a book," I said. She laughed, showing me a very white sadness. "No," she said, "she did." A man walks in like an excuse. He wore a linen jacket that pretended not to care, and a face from the category women call interesting when they mean dangerous enough to confess to later. He kissed the woman's temple with a practiced public intimacy, as if he were reapplying ownership. "Dasha," he said to her, then turned to me with an equal opportunity smile. "And you must be the reader." "I'm the husband," I said. To his credit, he flinched. Then he recovered with an actor's grace. "Then we are ahead of schedule," he said, and took the stool on my other side, which meant I was the hinge of a door I wasn't sure I wanted to close or open. "I'm Mark," he said, "like the thing you leave when you want to find your place again." I looked at Dasha. She looked at her drink like it had betrayed her. "Clumsy," she said to him. He shrugged in an accent money owns. "Room 274, I asked. He smiled. "If you take the elevator at 1912 and hold it," he said, "the other car arrives at the same time. It's a ghost in the system. 2 doors open at once. The stacks keep secrets for those who know how to carry them." Dasha rolled her eyes and slid off her stool. "I'll get the fiction slot," she said, and sauntered toward the lobby as if spines and titles had been arranged to frame her movement. Mark watched her with the warmth of a person who likes art he can touch, then turned back to me. "Lena is late," he said. "She swings between the clock and the mirror. It's part of her charm." I didn't punch him. I don't say that to brag. I say that because it felt like the kind of sentence you either perform or you put in a file labeled restraint. I drank my water. It tasted like I was pretending to be civilized. At 19:11, Dasha reappeared with a hotel key card tucked inside a paperback. She slid it toward Mark, then placed the sunflower pin on his lapel with a tenderness that felt purchased by more than money. "Don't be cruel," she said to him, "if you can help it." Then to me, "She has always wanted to test the plot. You can hate the experiment without hating the scientist." "I'm not here to hate," I said. "I'm here to ask who wrote my part." An elevator dinged. We stood like people doing a choreographed surprise. The cab opened and held. Another ding, a twin opening across the lobby like a magic trick the hotel was tired of but still performed. Mark stepped into the first and pressed 2. I stepped into the second and did the same. We rose in silent parallel. On the second floor, a narrow corridor slit the building. At the end, 274. The door was painted the color of old paper. A brass plaque said Colophon. My heart did small revolutionary acts. Mark gestured with a little flourish. "After you," he said. "It's your page." I used the key. The room smelled like lemon oil and the past. A long table sat under a window, stacked with books people had never read but had loved to own. The bed was made with librarian precision. The turn-down service had arranged a chocolate like a comma. And there, on the desk, lay Lena's Kindle. Page 274 was open. The sentence underlined. He was the sort of man who believed the truth would kiss him if he waited. Beside it, another note in her hand. Don't make me be the only brave one. Behind me, a soft sound. Then Lena was in the doorway, hair pinned up like she'd told it to behave and it had politely refused. Her eyes widened, and all three of us understood the scene had become something else. She looked at Mark. You weren't supposed to. I brought your husband, he said simply. She looked at me. The smallest things are always the most violent. The quick wet of her bottom lip, the way her fingers found each other and made a fist without deciding. She stepped into the room and closed the door like a person ending a chapter with optimism. I left the note so you'd find me, she said to me, not so you catch me. The line should have made me furious. It made me honest. I came so you wouldn't have to be alone in your audacity, I said. That's either love or weakness depending on where you put down the cup. Mark took off the sunflower pin and set it beside the Kindle, as if it were evidence in a courtroom where everyone is a little too well dressed. I can leave, he said calmly. You two can decide whether to continue being reasonable. Lena's jaw hardened, the way it does when she is about to do something stupid and brave and true. Stay, she said to him. Then to me softer, if you can. I did not expect my own voice to be as steady as it was. I can, I said, conditionally. The hotel air felt like it had hired a violinist. Mark leaned against the desk, careful to keep his hands where we could all see them, a courtesy I resented and appreciated. Name your conditions, he said. First, I said to Lena, you tell me what you're hungry for without using the word freedom, because I think you mean something more specific. She took a breath. Heat, she said. Not chaos, not harm, heat. She met my eyes. I want without filing paperwork. I want to be the story sometimes, not the editor. Second, I said to Mark, you stop treating us like content. No trophies. No clever artifacts for future narratives. If this happens at all, it lives and dies in rooms, not on devices. He shrugged like an apology. I hate the way performers steal from the moments that made them possible, he said. I can do that. No souvenirs. Third, I said, and this was the part of me I didn't know existed until the words arrived without asking. We do nothing here that we can't say on the walk home. We are indecently honest. You will both hate it and you will both live. Lena nodded first. Mark nodded after like a student taking good notes. We didn't undress. I'm not writing pornography. I'm writing about what happens when three people try to use honesty like it's a key. Lena reached for me and I let her, my hands finding the familiar empire of her back. She reached for him and he stayed where he was, letting his presence change the light without confusing it for fate. Her mouth on mine tasted like cinnamon and audit. Her hand on his wrist was an admission that desire can be plural without being a liar. At some point I laughed short, bewildered, and said, "This is absurd," and she laughed into my neck and said, "Yes," and that was the most erotic thing I have ever heard. We didn't perform for anyone. We made argument and answer out of the way our bodies remembered each other. Mark's palm grazed the small of her back once, and my entire skin took inventory. Then he stepped away like a competent ghost and said, "I'll be in the hall," and actually did it. When the door clicked, the room breathed. Lena pressed her forehead to mine, eyes open. "You still want me?" she asked. "Not always, now." "Yes," I said. We kissed as if we were trying to rewrite a sentence the world had memorized about us. When we were quiet again, our breath had that ragged politeness lovers bring to hotel rooms when they have won and lost at the same time. She lay with her head on my chest and traced the seam of my shirt. "I left breadcrumbs," she said. "I thought you would either throw them at me or follow. I didn't expect you to bring a broom and a lighter." "I didn't either," I said. We opened the door. Mark stood with his hands in his pockets, looking at the framed photograph of the building when it still believed in silence. He looked at us like a man watching a piano decide how tuned it wants to be. "You don't need me," he said, without bitterness. "Not tonight," Lena answered. "Not like that." He nodded and pinned the sunflower to the door's message card. "Then I'm returning the prop," he said. "Call me when you're done auditioning and ready to cast." We didn't call him. We called a taxi. We went home through a city that had decided to be kind. In the cab, Lena put her hand on my thigh and left it there, an old, holy weight. At home, she took the Kindle and deleted the notes one by one, not because notes are evil, but because we had learned enough to not outsource the work to margins. We made a month of rules. We didn't call it a 30-day trial because we weren't an app. We called it a month of heat. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, we dressed like people we would have cheated with and met in our own kitchen at odd hours. We fought about real things instead of using little ones to hide big ones. We said what we wanted without asterisks, and sometimes that meant not touching, which turned out to be erotic in a way no one posts about. On the second Thursday, we took a room at the Stacks under our name and laughed when the desk clerk said, "Welcome back," and meant it this time. We left the door open for an indecent minute because we liked the idea that the corridor could hear happiness without needing to identify it. A week later, a package arrived with no return address. Inside, a paperback with page 274 dog-eared and a note in clean handwriting. "If you need a mirror, I'll lend you mine. If you don't, I'll stop leaving them around." I put the book on the shelf and didn't open it. Some furniture you keep for a while to remind yourself you choose your rooms. I still charge her Kindle. Sometimes I read the novel she loved and underlined the same sentences, not to share them with a stranger but to recognize her in the syntax. There are no secret notes now, only our names in the devices list and a history of books that look like our conversations. The Stack still stands, selling curated intimacy. When we walk past it at night, Lena squeezes my hand twice, the old SOS, and I squeeze back 3 times, the new code we invented that means, "I am here, I am choosing, I am still burning on the page you turned to and didn't close."